What are the key aspects of effective backstroke and what do they look like? Hi everyone, Andrew Sheaf here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. Today we're going to talk about upper body propulsion and how to use the arms to improve speed in backstroke. We're going to go over what the different components are. We're going to go over what they look like. And that way you'll know exactly what you're trying to help your swimmers accomplish. And when you have clear goals, it's a lot easier to accomplish them. The goal here is to really simplify the backstroke pull. Sometimes it can be really complicated, but when it comes down to it, swimmers need to move a lot of water backwards so they can move forward, and it's all about finding the most effective and the most efficient ways of doing so. Let's dive in. So the first key concept here is creating a giant surface area to move as much water backwards as possible. And so if swimmers are using a small paddle, it's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. If they have a really big paddle, it's going to be a whole lot easier. So if we watch here, swimmer's going to set it up. And the whole arm right there is facing backwards, that whole forearm, that whole hand, and then it's going to move straight backwards. So it's a much bigger surface area than if the swimmer was just using the hand. So again, the whole forearm is facing backwards and water is moving straight backwards. So it's a much more effective way to interact with the water because they can create a much bigger surface area, which means they can hold a lot more water, which means they can move more water with each stroke. So the most important thing is setting up a position where they can orient the arm so that they can get that whole forearm facing backwards. That's going to create the biggest surface area. That's going to help them swim most effectively. Second thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at holding that position for as long as possible. So we'll watch from over the top. You can see this athlete here. That forearm, you can see at the bottom, is moving straight backwards for as long as possible. So watch the top. You can see her arm moving straight back as long as possible. She's got as much of that forearm straight back all the way through the end of the stroke. And so not only is it important to create a great position, it's really important to maintain that position for as long as possible. So you can see here, she orients the arm backwards. It's pretty much straight out to the side here. So the forearm itself is facing straight back, pulling straight back all the way through the entire stroke. And so create a big surface area, move it back for a long period of time. Swimmers are going to move a lot of water. So pretty simple in terms of what they actually have to do. So again, moving all that water straight back throughout the entire stroke. So next piece, swimmers need to accelerate their hand as they move through the pull as well. And that's going to build pressure on the water. That's going to allow for more propulsion. So far they have to have a great surface area. They've got to move it backwards for as long as possible. And they also want to accelerate through the pull. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So hand enters here, not moving very fast. And then you can see towards the end, it really accelerates. So right there, the hand speed picks up. So the hand and the arm are moving faster and faster as they go through the cycle. The goal is to try to accelerate the limb throughout to maintain and increase propulsion. The more effectively swimmers are able to do that, the more they're going to get out of each stroke. So it's not just about what they do, how they do it matters too. So a key aspect, once they get the idea of setting up the stroke effectively and then pulling straight back for as long as possible, they have to learn to accelerate the hand through the second half of the stroke. So there's one more concept that I'd like to communicate, and that's the idea of opening the armpit to set up the stroke and then closing the armpit to execute the stroke. And so if we see right here, swimmer enters and their armpit is really open in that there's a lot of space in there. So that means the major muscles of the chest, the pecs here, and then the muscles of the back, the lats here, are on stretch. They're opened up and they're not contracted. Then as the swimmer pulls through, you can see that space close, and that indicates that the strongest muscles have closed the armpit, have executed the pull, and that's what you really want because you want the strongest muscles doing the work as opposed to weaker muscles. So again, the setup here, the armpit's open, there's a lot of space, and then as the swimmer pulls, that armpit closes because of the contraction of those really strong muscles. And so if you have swimmers that are swimming ineffectively and they're just kind of sculling out here, you'll see that the armpit never really closes or doesn't do so in a pretty effective manner. And so it's a really key concept because swimmers have to set up the stroke effectively in terms of creating a forearm facing backwards, but they also have to do so in a way that keeps the armpit open so that they can use those strongest muscles to move the arm straight back and then accelerate that hand as well. So you have all these different components working together and working in concert in order to create a lot of propulsion. Swimmers have to create a large surface area with the arm. They have to move that surface area straight backwards so that they can move forwards. And the more that they can accelerate the limb, the faster they will move forwards. And the way that they power that is by using the strongest muscles of the upper body. They do so by setting up the stroke in a way that opens and lengthens those muscles. And then when they pull, those muscles are able to do the work. So while backstroke pulling can seem really complicated, ultimately it's fairly simple. Get a big surface area, move it straight back, and accelerate it straight back. Usually when you do that, that allows for the armpit to open and close so that you can use the strongest muscles of the body. Rather than focusing on down sweeps, up sweeps, or other nuanced concepts, focus on the big picture of what needs to happen for swimmers to move forward. And ultimately, you'll become much more effective at designing interventions to help swimmers learn these skills. And when they can learn these skills, they're going to swim a whole lot faster. Hope that was helpful. As always, keep it simple.